Yeah.
Well, you guys did do something interesting this Wednesday, right? Though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did an experiment this Wednesday because people probably heard about watch parties on Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it. What was that, Christian?
They are a thing.
Yeah, not only that, but we did it and it worked, kind of. But we did an interesting experiment. We watched Blade of the Immortal with Tom Kroom, who kind of runs the anime program at Gen Con. So he has some plans for some stuff he wants to do at Gen Con Online. So we were testing out how would a watch party work? But more importantly, how does a watch party work if the people watching it and providing commentary are in different locations and they're not on their computer watching their own stream? And it ended up being that like we both had to have Amazon up and like, okay, 3, 2, 1, click play, like that. It was, yeah. So we had to go through some hoops, but it was still fun. Like, you know, it almost felt like when I was back in college and we had an anime club and you would go watch the new anime with your buddy next to you and you'd be like, oh my God, did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So we had some fun. We had a lot more viewers than I honestly really was expecting. And I talked about how I really would love to do some sort of anime of the month club or even just kicking back and watching Star Trek with Gen Con fans or something like that.
Next Generation.
Absolutely. Next Generation is where my heart is. I can totally admit that DS9 is better.
Yes.
But
yeah,
maybe that's something that we'll experiment with in the future. I thought it was pretty fun.
Facts is fact.
Speaking about experimenting, you've been very busy, Emma, right? With all the pitches and stuff.
Yeah. So it's been a tough month, year, whatever. It's everybody knows it. But for some reason, I kind of like came out of it a little bit beginning this Monday. I got one of my inboxes to inbox 0, managed to finally process a lot of old stuff that had just been sitting around. And part of that was like community, like spending more time, people reaching out to me reaching out to people. So it's weird, like when it rains, it pours, right? When all of a sudden it's like, one person's like, oh, I want to talk to you about games. There's like 5 people who want to talk to you about games all at the same time, which can be a lot, but it's felt a little better this week, having some agency and some cool new projects on the horizon.
Well, I just want to have a moment for your accomplishment of inbox 0.
Thank you. It turns out you can just delete or archive an email.
I was forced into agency this week myself. I wasn't ready to take any responsibility for anything by the time Monday rolled around. But by then it was time to start taking responsibility for things. So, came up with a general plan of how to do a live show online instead of in front of a, huge 1,000-person audience. I think it'll work.
Is there anything? So this is for your Gen Con Online thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any any cool details, sneak previews, or hyperbolic promises you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be since I don't have all of the audience members to help me out. Usually, I use the whole audience, and they line up across the room, and I use them as the NPCs in the game that we're playing, which is basically just an improv show where we're pretending to play D&D. And I didn't know how to really make that jive since I can't bring up audience members on stage. So I'm just going to go for having the largest cast in Gamers Live history.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we're also doing a live version of our Masters of the Metaverse show on Saturday, which is I don't have to GM, thankfully.
Ooh.
But I'm very excited about it.
Very cool. I know that just sounds like, oh my goodness, all you guys are all busy. And then what I've been doing, I was like, I've been making more sculptures with butts on them.
Yeah.
And having baths. You guys are all like, oh, we're getting all this thing planned and we're doing stuff and we're doing all the background movers and shakers. And I'm like, I like making butts.
Bonsai, your work gives me joy. And I mean, to be honest, like your butt thing happened towards the beginning of this week, I think. So it could have potentially been an impetus for my own change. Like the hope and joy inspired by that little butt could have been what inspired me to take charge of my life.
So butt changes lives. Butt changes
I'm
lives.
gonna jump on that bandwagon too. Your butt's
The butt
definitely
bandwagon.
made my week better. Thank you for the butts. Plural.
There are all the butts. But yeah, no.
But
You know,
yeah,
but yeah. We can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Stop being cheeky.
Bum. Well, let's go ahead and just with that big old smile with this week, let's
Because
go
we
ahead
have
and
people,
roll into something that might not bring you a big old smile, actually won't bring you a big old smile at all. Christian, you want to tell us about it?
Actually, this should make some people very happy, I'm hoping. But then angry afterwards, as they should be. Competitive Scrabble has just banned offensive words. What does that mean exactly? That means in North American Competitive Scrabble, which uses their own dictionary, they have now banned words including beep, 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 and beep, including racial slurs, which they have finally outlawed instead. Now, just as a frame of reference here, the official Scrabble dictionary, as Bonsai pointed out to me earlier, has not included these words for the last 30 years. However, in North American competitive play, they were apparently just fine until yesterday. So,
America.
it's a good news, bad news situation.
America.
It's a good news, bad news situation. Good news, you no longer can be that huge of a jerk during competitive Scrabble anymore. And two, we're horrible here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Back to you, Bonsai.
Well, yeah, that's some exciting news to roll into. How about yes, it is good that they're changing. Finally, it did take this long. Like I said, 30 years.
How was that allowed yesterday is what I want to know.
I feel like this is just something they're like, let's
come
just
up at a tournament recently. It's like, actually, that word's totally good. Rules don't say you can't say it.
There's nothing in the rules that says a dog can't play Scrabble.
I get that reference.
But yeah, I mean, we do have actually some other from this, at least positive change going about, probably because, of course, everybody's very aware Black Lives Matter movement still going on, and we're still doing societal change here in North America or the United States specifically.
How much pressure Scrabble was getting, from the outside,
It's a big Scrabble conspiracy. Maybe that's just
I don't know. I don't know what the North American competitive Scrabble scenes looks like in general, but was there pushback on this from them?
I guess we'll have to see. I mean, probably I suspect somebody. Considering how Scrabble is set up and how it's a one of those technically kind of games. I'm sure that somebody was like, well, it's a word, so you can't ban it. I guarantee you somebody said that.
Yeah.
I guarantee you more than just somebody said it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
But yeah, I mean,
and we wonder why they call them grammar Nazis.
No.
But on other related news, we actually have some good news coming in from Kickstarter numbers. Derek, do you want to go ahead and explain to us about what's going on there?
Sure. So both Dicebreaker and ICV2 had some interesting articles and analyses about how Kickstarter in general and games in specific have been doing over the past 6 months or so. So you may not have noticed, but the world is basically burning down around us. And it's having a huge impact on a lot of people's lives. So, especially if you're a Kickstarter creator or if you're a Kickstarter or you're kind of looking at how games are developed and funded and released, you're probably wondering, what impact is this having on people backing Kickstarter? Should I launch my Kickstarter now? Should I not? What should I be doing? What's happening? And it's actually rather interesting that Kickstarter is doing great despite everything happening in the world. Games in particular too. So the number of projects on Kickstarter is much lower than it was last year at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But the money coming into those projects seems to be higher. And it's interesting to kind of speculate why. Like when I was kind of looking at the numbers, I was wondering if maybe it's because a few big projects came through. Like if everyone remembers Frosthaven, the big sequel to Gloomhaven, it broke records. It was the biggest Kickstarter ever, $14 million. 13 or $14 million. Like at that point, there's not a huge difference, I suppose. But it was a huge project, big news at the time. Everybody's very excited about it. Is that the whole thing? But apparently, even if you take that out, games are still up 30% over the same period for last year. So, my next thought was then, well, maybe people are just like, well, I can't go out and play games with my friends anyway for the next 6, 12, 18 months. So I'm a little more willing to buy a game that I won't get for the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
I think one of you two were also just like, well, we're stuck at home just dreaming about the fun we can have anyway. And that kind of puts you in a mindset where you're like, sure, yeah, I'll put some money behind my dream.
Yeah. Well, I said earlier that there's a fantasy element to it, right? Like Kickstarters have always been built on fantasies, building up that dream of all the fun that you could have. And more so than ever, a lot of us are looking for that escapism of, not that I can't play it right now, like you had said, but I can look at the site, I can dream about the potential of it. So there's definitely a little bit of future retail therapy going on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely how I feel about Kickstarter. It's a gift that now me is buying for future me.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I will also say the target market for Kickstarters, especially for hobbyist board games, and this is going to sound kind of awful, but it's a lot of people in that target demographic aren't suffering and might even have more disposable income right now, because a lot of people aren't like tech people, aren't having to go to work, like they've saved on a lot of their expenses. And so that they might have more money to spend on it. Again, that's a terrible byproduct of capitalism, but it is something that could contribute to the support or to the stabilizing of Kickstarter project income.
Well, I think it might have something to do with, do you know like how we are tipping more as a society right now because we can't leave the house as often, and
yeah,
we're doing it because we're trying to support those workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want that server to make sure that it's worth it to come to work, since they're risking a pandemic every time they leave the house. So I'm tipping 50% instead of 20 right now.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of correlates to what we're doing with Kickstarters too. Like we want to support these game designers who had a kind of an ill-timed Kickstarter because they didn't expect a pandemic coming. So yeah, throw some money at them. Let's even if I don't see that game tomorrow, I'm still gonna have it, and I feel like I've done something.
I think for my 2 cents is that I think that overall the last record was like before this one was the last 6 months. I think overall just games in general are having an like a rise. There's more people playing games, and of course our generation of board game players are of course introducing it to our kids and so on, and it's become more of it's no longer, at least like I remember even growing up, like board games in some areas, at least on my island of Guam, we were like, oh, nerds, no one wants to, like, you had to be very kind of quiet or else you get beat up. So like for us, like it's more acceptable to be in like gaming, and a lot of us, like Emma was saying, a lot of us are in tech positions, and so like me and my husband and I are like, we have this extra money, and we have like, we're not spending it on eating out or going and gas or anything like that. So we are going to go ahead and support creators that we want to keep seeing games from.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is probably worth re-emphasizing. It's just that like that matches my experience. I'm working on Gen Con from home. I'm saving a lot of money. I'm saving a lot of time. I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ramen a lot more, but that's just because I'm lazy about actually cooking real food. But
same.
I'm saving money. But there are a lot of people who are not in that position.
Yeah.
They don't have jobs they can work from home, or they don't have jobs that can even happen if people can't go out and hang out with each other. Wait staff at restaurants, or restaurants in general, or service industries that require you to go to them. A lot of those folks are out of work. There's signs that we're going to have a huge eviction problem coming around soon. As that starts to work its way through. So, if you are in a position like kind of what Christian said, maybe this is a good time, if you're saving money, to tip a little bit more, to take a risk on a project, or buy something from an independent artist or creator or something like that, might be struggling through a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I'm not living above the poverty line by any stretch of the imagination, but I am trying to give a little bit of what I have back, because I've got something right now as opposed to nothing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
buy everybody's games if I could.
Yeah, it just we'll have to see. And we'll also have to see, because a lot of these projects that have been successfully kickstarted all were all were designed and built like even before this year started, before the pandemic. So we'll have to see what the next 6 months will be.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of like, hey, just in case, let's not go ahead and like, oh, everything is gonna be up and up. There is a chance that things won't be up and up, like you're saying, because there are a lot of people.
I've got on good authority this is just going to go away.
Yeah, right.
A very reliable source let me know.
But yeah, we'll just have to see how everything settles in, and just keep in mind that there are, like, yes, there are highs in this, but like Derek was saying, that there are people with a lot of lows right now. So if you can help out your fellow person, especially your fellow gamer or business, this is like some ways to do it.
What do we do if all we really need is a hug? Asking for a friend.
I think you get a stuffed animal. Order one of those really huge Snorlaxes off of Amazon and just roll around the floor for a little bit.
Or one of those pillows.
Oh yeah, the pillows. Isn't Japan like making hug robots already? They're having androids you can get hugs to, and that have heating pads on there, so you can kind of feel like you're hugging a human.
Or weighted blanket.
Weighted blankets.
Yeah,
that's the key. But yeah, on this talking about how all of these various different games are being celebrated and things are going really good for like Kickstarter and such. Here are some games that if you were stuck at home and don't have you want to have some games and you want like to know of some games that are good. Dice Tower Awards for 2019 just came out and just were announced. So let me go ahead and just run through these really quick. Some of these are very obvious, like Wingspan, huzzah, huzzah, Game of the Year, or Game of the Year, game from a new designer. Horrified got an award for best cooperative. That's a very hard word for me. Can somebody please say it?
Let's cooperate with you. It's a cooperative game.
It's cooperative game. And with cooperative, gosh darn it. But yes, that word, where you work together and theming. Parks, I am familiar with. Very beautiful. If you like best artwork. Point Salad, I've also played as well. Family game where you just kind of add all the little salads. You gotta add the vegetables too.
Add the vegetables.
Add the vegetables. Emma knows about vegetables because, abandon all the artichokes. Wavelength got award for best party game. Lord of the Rings Journey in Middle Earth is the best solo game. Maracaibo. This is how do you pronounce that word? I'm sorry. Maracaibo, maybe? Maracaibo got the best strategy game. Detective City of Angels got the best innovation game. Watergate, best 2-player game. Cloudspire, the best board game production. Res Arcana, best game from a small publisher. And Quacks of
Quacks. We just call it Quacks.
Quacks, the Herbs of Wishes for best expansion. Which games pop out for you guys?
Obviously, Wingspan.
Yeah.
Because that's the one I've played.
Point Salad by one of my friends, a local Seattle designer, design co-op actually, and also Wavelength. I've had fun with. It actually has a very great mod on Tabletop Simulator too, so you can play it on Tabletop Simulator remotely.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Wavelength and the Horrifieds are the ones that leap out at me. Wavelength because I think it's a brilliant game. I don't think I would ever want to play.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like I just, or I would only want to play it with like the right people, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But then Horrified, I haven't played yet. But I love that's from Forest Present. I love a lot of their games. I love co-op games, so I really want to have a chance to actually play that at some point.
Yeah, this was one of the ones that I got to workshop and playtest at Forest Present back when I was doing that. And it really super lives up to everything. I don't want to I don't want to put it up too high, say your expectations too high, but I'm not even super into that classic horror movie stuff, but even coming from that perspective, just the art was immersive and the cooperative action was interesting, and yeah, it's just super solid.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, these are like, so I said, Dice Tower Awards, these are games you want to go ahead and try to look at if you're like staying inside, want to go ahead. And Emma was saying that a lot of these games are also available on Tabletop Simulator, so things to
or Board Game Arena or Tabletopia, like any other kind of platforms that we've talked about. So I think it's really interesting. I think how much, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but how much we have learned about how many of these games can be played online. And I really like Tabletopia, I think is a perfect example, because that's something that we've seen in a number of Kickstarters where it'd be a Kickstarter for a board game and there's a link to just like play this game right now on Tabletopia. It reminds me of, video games' great strength of being able to have a demo you can just download and you can play the demo and find out if you're actually going to like the game before you buy it.
Yeah.
Bringing that some to tabletop games is fantastic. And I really hope that once we are back playing games with each other, people still continue to embrace playing games online as just part of the hobby.
And plus they can do, like, I've got mods that do the math for me, so I don't have to. And that's nice. It's nice when computers do the math for you.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we've gone through a lot of like exciting news, kind of like news, like you just like news that we're going through. We're going to go ahead and take a turn to do some serious news. Emma, you want to go ahead and talk to us about some of that?
Yeah, so this is something that I've been pretty close to, and really just awful stuff. Eric Lang's Twitter account was suspended due to harassment from the quartering. You all probably know who Eric Lang is, an amazing board game designer, has been in the industry for years and years, and also just an amazing treasure of a human being, supportive of people of color, of women in the industry. Just like every interaction I've had with this person has just been absolutely amazing. So it's just so awful to see a person who's been outspoken and supporting underprivileged groups, who is himself a Black person, he's a person of color, to see him be suspended from Twitter. So basically what happened, I think we have a Kotaku article here and some Twitter threads if you want to read more about the story. But what happened was Eric, as a upstanding person, made a message about protecting himself from potential future harassment. And because of this message, because he had tagged the quartering, who is a person whose community is known for dogpiling on people, they flooded the system with reports of Eric's bad behavior, just unfounded reports of behavior, basically turning the tools of Twitter meant to protect people, using them for nefarious purposes. And yeah,
well, what particularly bothered me about the situation is that it should be pretty self-evident to anybody at Twitter support or safety or whatever their kind of process is, that if you were to just look at Eric's Twitter account, that there's no sign of a reason worthy of suspension. It's I love and hate Twitter, to be honest. It's very difficult to kind of
have a person that does that. I feel like program.
Yeah, I mean, like that is a challenge that I think all these large tech companies run into. Of you're dealing with individuals, you need to figure out a way to deal with individuals while simultaneously operating at a scale that individuals can't handle. But at some level, you kind of feel like there needs to be someone here to review this and correct it, because otherwise bad actors are going to figure out how to game the system and accomplish things like this.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's the bad news. All of us in Board Game Twitter are working really hard to contact Twitter support and get this remedied. If you follow through some of those links, especially the Twitter posting of Eric's Facebook posts, there's a lot of great actionable stuff there. I think one of the most important things is a refrain we often say is, don't feed the trolls. I'm not going to say that that's wrong. Like getting into endless debates and spending a lot of your energy isn't good. But I think a lot of us have taken that to mean if we see any sort of bad behavior, to turn a blind eye. I think that's really what that message has become. And what that means is a lot of people end up getting piled on and attacked, and no one stands up for them because they don't want to feed the trolls. And I think it's time to kind of investigate that attitude. And there's things we can do. If you go into a lot of these accounts and look through their history, you can find a lot of reportable offenses. Again, don't abuse the tools, but you can find actual instances where these people have spread hate. You can report them for that. You can block these accounts. There's lots of things you can do that's spending your energy in good ways to, first of all, our goal is to get Eric's account reinstated. So supporting that is very important. And then second of all, just to be a stronger community and to help each other and defend each other and stand up for each other.
Well, I think a really important distinction is that we have to figure out, and like, there's not an easy way to do this, but we have to figure out the difference between feeding the trolls and making it clear to not necessarily the trolls, but to people who are watching the interaction that that kind of behavior is not okay.
Yeah.
Because I think in almost every case, when somebody shows up and is just being a jerk, there's not really a lot that you can expect to do for or with them. And I think a good way that I've always thought about a lot of these online interactions is that remember how many people may be watching your interaction that are not commenting. So you want to make sure to deal with that in a way that sends a message to those people about whether the behavior that's happening here is acceptable and how you would want everybody else in the community to treat that thing. So when someone is harassing somebody, try to consider not just ignoring it, but also not falling into the trap of debating the person. But you need to make it clear that like that kind of behavior is not okay. Those slurs are not okay, or that type of argument's not okay, or whatever it is. And that's also not a thing that is just limited to online behavior. That's a thing that we can do at the table when we're playing games with strangers or with friends. There are ways to say like, hey, that's not cool, or we don't do that here, or whatever else. But even if you're dealing with one person, think of everybody else who's watching you and try to behave in a way that will show them how you want them to behave.
Yeah. And some people in chat are pointing out that once people are reported, it doesn't always work. I've reported hundreds of people probably at this time, and only a handful of them have been, I've gotten notifications from Twitter that action has been taken, but some action is taken, right? At a certain point, enough reports are received and they review it, and there is some effect. I think it's important to say it's kind of privileged to think that your actions will always have an effect. And it's important to keep doing actions even though you might not see progress. And the continued action of the community over time is what's going to make these changes happen.
Hundreds?
What was that?
Hundreds?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to some particular leaders or so-called leaders and look at some of the responses there, you'll find a lot of really awful stuff. Yeah. Right,
but you've gone and you've reported hundreds?
Yeah, I'm doing the work.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have to wade through so much awfulness. I couldn't do that.
That sounds so tiring.
Like that episode of South Park where Butters becomes everybody's, Twitter person.
Yeah.
You're doing that job.
I mean, that also reminds me of the advice that we see a lot of community organizers give around protesting, which is be aware of what your boundaries and limits and willingness to expose yourself to something are, and then respect other people's. So like, don't harm yourself by wading into this and going too far than you can handle. But also like, if somebody else is like, I just can't do that. Like, that's on them. Like, they're the ones who know what they need to do. So even if you're going out and reporting hundreds of people, if your friend is not doing that because they say that they would just not be healthy for their mental health or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There's, respect them. They're still your friend.
No, like
Yeah.
you go, warrior. I have got no issue with you doing it. I'm just like, that is so much extra work. I'm a pure block button guy. Like, oh, you said something I don't like.
Yeah.
And you're done.
Yeah, I mean, it helps having some distance. Like if you go on to, I think if it's people attacking me or people attacking people I really cared about, there would definitely be more feelings there. But just seeing, some of it's easy. Again,
Right.
if you go to these awful person who is somehow in charge tweets and look at some of their stuff, it's just like, oh yeah, that's racism. That's just obvious. There's just so much blatant stuff in there. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess the bigger
the
bigger point is that the point we want to get across and what have people been like, saying is, if you see something, say something. Silence isn't the answer. Silence is usually what does hurt, but overall, just also be aware and protect yourself with this, and each just go ahead and be as safe as you can and try to be. Sometimes, like for me, when I get troll response, I just go, you know what, I know you're having a bad day, or something like that. I just wish you the best, and then never engage again. That's how I go. Here, you poor soul, here's a cookie.
It took me years to even like force myself to hit the block button, because I'm going to be like, oh, that racist won't like me anymore.
Yeah, no. It's tough.
It's just not worth your energy. But like we could go on about this, because this is a very serious topic, and it is something that we have seen, especially because we're in the age of technology, how a mass, like essentially a witch hunt can happen, and mass reporting. So just be aware, be informed, and if you want to go ahead and know more about the story, we have links in chat, and and like Emma said, there are ways that you can help, and also going in and essentially weeding through your own mess of stuff, helps as well. But from this low point, Derek, tell us something, a high point, but actually no, this is more gloom and doom of its own accord.
Oh no.
Yeah, but
it's
the best kind of gloom and doom. I'm excited. Yeah, because tomorrow is when the 9th edition stuff for Warhammer is going to go up for pre-order. It's going to be a 2-week pre-order window. So going up tomorrow, it'll be in stores on July 25th. But tomorrow is when you'll be able to pre-order the Indominus box and, new open war cards, chapter approved, which is come out as 2 books now, one for tournaments and one for the points amounts. This is for 40K specifically. We have a little bit of news for Age of Sigmar / Warhammer Fantasy in a bit. But there's like a crusade journal you can use to try to track your games, see how your characters are growing. There's like some scattered terrain. There's a bunch of like knickknacks and stuff like that. There's 4 new paints, 8 new novels. But most importantly, there is a extremely limited collector's edition of only 2,000 copies. That if I find out that any of you got in line in front of me and ordered and I didn't get one, we will have a discussion that will involve you giving me the damn book.
See, once again, Derek, you've fallen into the trap of reading your own notes. If you would have just skipped that part of them, nobody would know about those 2,000 copies but you, and you could just have
then you just told 60 people about this, Derek. What you need to do is get them on your side. Have them stand in line for you.
See, there we go. It's a gamble I'm taking here. So I know what I'm going to be doing early tomorrow morning. So that is the big news for Warhammer, and I think for almost all of the stuff that they're doing, other than that collector's edition, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your local store that carries Warhammer product, whether that's a Games Workshop store or another store. Even if they're closed, they're likely going to have curbside pickup. Talk with them, see if you can get on the pre-order list or something like that. I know that at least from like the local retailers I've talked to here, interest is real high, and I think they're already trying to increase their orders with Games Workshop. It's unclear how many of them are going to be successful, because that Indominus box that we talked about is not the new starter box, so it's not going to be available indefinitely. So if you want Space Marines or Necrons, pre-order that, because it's probably not going to be available for very long. But try to order it through your local store if you can.
Yep.
In other Warhammer news, there are finally some details for the Warhammer 40K app that Games Workshop is releasing. So it should be out in the next couple of weeks, and they've announced kind of how the business model for it is going to work. So first, it's going to have the core rules, which is like a free 26-page PDF or something like that. That's available free for everybody. The future codexes for 9th edition that come out, if you go buy the physical book, it's going to come with a code. That code will unlock those rules for you in the app so that you'll have access to that for quote unquote free. But then there's also going to be a subscription for £4, which I'm not sure what the trend, I think
it's about $150 US.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Also, I make up numbers.
Yeah, close.
No,
I think
sounds right.
It's either 150 or about $5 a month, one of those two. And it's going to include like the full rules reference, which they haven't clarified, but I suspect might be the full core book, basically. Army building to actually allow you to build your army in the app, although that's not going to be there at launch. And then apparently, if you subscribe, you get full access to all the rules from all the codexes for 8th edition, most of which work in 9th until they're replaced by a new codex. So there's some really interesting things here. One, we've wanted a kind of army builder for 40K directly from Games Workshop for a very long time. Fans have had to go to a bunch of like third-party apps, which have very... There are a bunch of third-party apps, but there's a lot of like questionable legality around a lot of that stuff. Because it's using like names and point values and stuff like that.
This is not an open gaming license on Games.
Correct. So like my getting used to D&D Beyond has really made me hungry for an execution of anything resembling that for Warhammer on a similar level of polish. So I have high hopes for this and high expectations. So we'll see how that works out. But it was really interesting that you get all of the 8th edition stuff, basically, as part of that subscription. And I suspect that might be to make sure that people feel like there's a value to that subscription in the beginning. But 8th edition has a weird transition where some of those, or 9th edition has some of those 8th edition books are still useful. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this new edition is accepted by people.
Cool.
Okay. Very, very cool. I think you have one more good update to give us right now.
I do. So I think somebody in chat was previously asking, what I was talking about was for Warhammer or 40K, which might suggest they're more of a Warhammer fantasy enthusiast. And we didn't cover this the other week because I think we had a lot of headlines and a lot of topics to go through anyway. But releasing in stores tomorrow, so you can still pre-order it today if you want, or you can just go pick it up tomorrow, is the 2020 General's Handbook for Age of Sigmar, which is like the updated current version of Warhammer Fantasy, basically. And they've been kind of releasing an update to that each year. So this is the new updates for 2020 are basically available now. So if you are been playing Sigmar or been painting your army as you're in quarantine in anticipation of playing more when you can actually go back out to the world, then you might want to pick this up so you can bone up on the current rules.
Oh, yes. Ooh. Cool. So all that was just like a Warhammer blast. All that stuff. Well, now as another thing, guess what? 2020 year of going digital. DragonCon just announced that they are not going to be doing an actual convention this year. There is going to be a digital DragonCon experience. So don't worry about that. Although you might not be there physically, you can still hang out digitally. There's not that much details going on right now about it, but later on we'll probably hear more news to come. On one that isn't going digital, unfortunately, Emerald City Comic-Con is, first they said they're going to delay it. They have basically said no-go to a convention, and I have not heard, or like there hasn't been any word about it going digital in any format. And then the last thing for things that are happening, Star Wars Celebration Lightspeed, not going to happen till 2022. So if you guys mark your calendars for years to come, or just get ready to lock into that digital world experiences. So all of these various, as we get more updated, we'll give you more news about that. And then Emma, you have some more cancellation news going on too, am I right?
Yeah, so just
Hooray.
more about how just because something went away and then it came back doesn't mean that it's hanging around forever. So what happened with Wizards and in-store Magic the Gathering play was in the beginning of June, they had kind of eased back into in-store events, supporting in-store events, but now they've canceled all in-store events for North America specifically because, as it turns out, we are doing a horrible job of handling the pandemic. And so they had
job, it'll be gone anytime now.
they had what I appreciate about this is they are being very context aware. I think some people just want to live in their fantasy world where things are getting better so bad that they're making dangerous decisions. But WotC here is being smart about it. You know, local game stores rely a lot on the support from WotC for their in-game events. So if WotC cancels those, the stores can't really do in-game events. And the problem is it's just not safe to do those events right now. So they're going to continue to reevaluate. But for now, if you had heard that they had restarted events and you were thinking about going out sometime, they're not doing this for the time being. There's still Arena. We're still doing digital FNMs in Arena that can support your local game stores. So
And Arena just came out on Mac too. So like
cool. Yeah.
the one person in the world who has a Mac and apparently is kind of interested in playing Magic is happy now.
Oh no, man.
Just like Derek's update is here.
As you can see, we're all not Mac users.
And of course, you know, this is going to be tough for local game stores because Magic is something that gives a lot of money to these local game stores. So by continuing to do the FNMs on Arena, you can support them. And a lot of stores are still doing local out-of-store pickup where you can like go and get games. So, and I think it makes sense too. Like just going to a store, browsing the stock is very different from having 100 people in a room a foot apart from each other. You know, it's just, it's important to be aware of the science of the spread of diseases, and cramming a bunch of people into a room is not necessarily the best thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm. And like Wizards did announce that they were going to be reevaluating that on like a monthly basis going forward, just because at this point nobody knows what to predict.
You disappear anytime.
I'm under the opinion until there's a vaccine, I ain't going anywhere. That's just me.
Pretty much.
But yeah, but we do have one last headline to get through, and this is another one that I do want to make note that is a serious one that we are dealing with in today's society. Emma, can you give us a little bit more word about that?
Sure. So if you've been following the Wizards of the Coast news, specifically having to do with Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of this is happening on Twitter. You probably will have seen that there's been a lot of pushback for just a lot of stuff going on with D&D, everything from old modules to current representations of race in the game to a lot of the Black creators who have worked for Wizards of the Coast and had problems with racism in the company. Wizards of the Coast issued a statement, called it an apology. It's not really a great apology, so I'm not sure that I want to call it that, but I think it's really important to point out to people, a lot of people on the fringes who are just saying like, I don't know how I can really support people. And, you know, if they made an apology, at least they're doing something. It's really important to understand the degrees going on here and kind of the subtleties. So what happened here was Wizards issued a statement specifically to Orion Black, who was one of the people who had worked for Wizards of the Coast and was hurt, a Black person who was hurt by the racism in the company. And Orion...
They were a contractor who worked on the Theros D&D book, I believe.
Yeah.
I think they were talking about how excited they were about that.
Yeah. And so they eventually had to leave Wizards of the Coast and cut ties with them because of these issues. And basically what it comes down to is just making a statement is not enough. You know, Wizards of the Coast is scrambling a little right now because so many people are supporting people of color and coming at them and saying that they want to see change. And Wizards of the Coast, I don't know what's happening internally, if they really are working towards change, but there's some failings that we've seen here, especially, for example, not reaching out to Orion directly and saying like, hey, what can we do to help? You know, it's kind of a ongoing issue with white privilege, is this thing is like, oh, well, we know what the solution to is. We're just going to make a Twitter post and not ask them what they actually need, and that's going to take care of everything. So important to stay abreast of, you know, what is actually effective as opposed to what's more along the lines of being performative, and continue to listen to Black creators when they're telling people what it is that they want, which is the cessation of racism in these companies.
Now, it is worth noting that Wizards, in that response and in replies to the reaction of that response, they don't seem to be under any illusions that response to Orion Black is the end of the situation. They have said that it's, you know, the first step, that it's part of a process, that they're working on a larger plan. You know, they're tying it into the statement they've made about equity before, about some of the other issues that have come up. So I think the optimistic people are taking that as a sign that hopefully more action will be coming. But I do think it's something where we need to pay attention to what that action is, and tell Wizards how we feel about that, so that they understand what else they may need to do.
And that this isn't just for, of course, this is just for a lot of, like, including a lot of POC or people of color within this type of genre. We want to go ahead and we want to say, hey, we love this product, but we want to make sure that it is available and, you know, accepting of all people, and being very socially conscious about how we portray certain people or expand. And that's just in mind, this is not something that is the flavor of the month. This is something that you should continue to do for the rest of your life. But with that, we have done with our actual main headlines, and it's time for the best part, is the bundle.
Oh, you just said I was the best part. It's not true, but that's okay. Hey, you know, have you been thinking about maybe trying out a different role-playing game lately?
I have.
Have you?
I have too.
Okay. Have you heard of Shadowrun?
I have.
Extra points for those of you who thought I was about to say riffs, by the way.
Well, you did say riffs, though. You just said it.
You said it. You said it right there.
I drink. Anyway, Shadowrun. Let's talk about Shadowrun, because the bundle of holding this week has the Shadowrun 5th Edition's Essentials, which is pretty darn amazing, as I have taken a look at it now. Comes with the core 5th edition book, along with pretty much all the most essential books and splat books for 5th edition. So we're currently in the 6th edition of Shadowrun, which released last year. And we, you know, Derek, you got the big fancy book for that?
Yep.
I did.
The one that I was slightly upset that I didn't get, but then I kind of was like, oh, wait.
So yeah, some people have not been as receptive to this latest edition of Shadowrun. You can read reviews online if you're interested in knowing more about them. This is the 5th edition, touted by some Shadowrun fans as the last good and or playable edition of the game. And it comes with pretty much everything you're going to need. You're $20 for your base game, $32 for the level up, and supports direct relief, which is going to help the people with the corona.
And to be clear, that bundle is a resurrection of an older bundle that they had done before.
They did back in February. And that was that was very, very popular. They brought it back. And on top of that, they've offered the Shadowrun 5 Lethal Streets bundle, which is a whole bunch of source books. It comes with the books Street Lethal, Kill Code, Better Than Bad, which is a whole scenario in which you were playing actual good guys doing good things in Shadowrun. An interesting concept, to say the least. And Hard Targets, among other things. There's more in there. So if you're not familiar with Shadowrun, if it's not a game that you have played before, let me just kind of give you the basics of what it is. So it's a cyberpunk setting with fantasy setting creatures and people, and also magic, and also cyberware, and also dragons that run corporations, and also basically Johnny Mnemonic. And The Matrix also
Sounds
is there.
pretty cool.
Yes.
That's where they got the name The Matrix from, for the Matrix movies, I'm guessing.
Cool.
That would be my guess, because it's been around a lot longer than those movies have. That's what they used to call the World Wide Web of Shadowrun, was the Matrix, which always sounded really cool. But then you played with somebody who played one of those guys that goes in the Matrix, and in the old editions that had to be basically a whole separate game.
That was always me.
None of the rest of the party got to play.
I like I would recommend Shadowrun as well, 5th edition. I love it.
Super lethal.
Yeah, and super lethal. Oh, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, no, super recommend it. Like, that's a game where you can just play complete jerks too. Like, for our campaign, everybody we helped, we just turned into drug dealers, and then that helped the economy for that sector. Okay. There we go. Boom. We're like, boom, we helped you out. Now you got this to sell, and you can.
One of the movies we worked on was actually one of the gamers movies that we worked on was a total spoof of Shadowrun called Natural One, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yes, and that is going to Direct Relief, if that was right. Yes,
Direct Relief, and then both of those actually go towards Direct Relief, which is supporting the people with the COVIDs.
Wear your mask, wash your hands. But now that is our bundle boss. Now it is time for our for our Kickstarter Queen. Wait, this way.
I like how your microphone didn't cut you out there. So maybe it's learning.
I did turn RTX on this time.
Oh, okay, I see. It's not that it's learning; it's that you've put it in the dunce corner with a little cap on it. So to go through Kickstarters this week, the first one that I wanted to share has 4 days left, ending on Tuesday, July 14th, and it's Adventure Presents Tartarus Gate. And so this is an interesting idea to me because it's it's a new game / just an adventure in pre-gens. Like, it's a very tailored kind of experience. It's written by I had a note here. Here we go. Grant Howlett and Chris Taylor, who are the designers of Spire, which I keep talking about how much I love, and Honey Heist, which I'm pretty sure that if you have heard indie game designers talk about a game, they've referenced Honey Heist, or a game derived from Honey Heist, or a game derived from a game derived from ridiculous. Yeah, like
you play as bears doing a heist. It's a one-pager. You should check it out.
Yep, I think Honey Heist is kind of the poster child for the one-page RPG, basically. Yeah.
Oh, right. I remember when we talked about this for the first time, because it sounded like such a great idea.
Yeah.
So if you aren't sure what one-page RPGs are, go check out Honey Heist. But the creators behind some of those things are working on this now. And the pitch here is basically, I think the snarky way to say it is paranoia plus aliens plus The Office in space.
Okay.
Yeah, so apparently you are like contractors, temp workers who are generally in suspended animation. You wake up every now and then to help the AI with a problem. You are woken up and told, hey, all the video feeds from the lower decks are gone. Go figure out what happened. And you really want to impress your boss so that you will get a permanent position in, I assume, healthcare or better pay or something like that. So, this very much seems like a send up of a lot of those space horror tropes through a capitalism is the true monster kind of humor angle, if you get what I mean.
Very Brazil.
Yeah. And I am a huge fan of any time we have, here's a pre-generated character, here is an adventure scenario built for those characters, play it. It's going to last a couple sessions. It's all you need. Just do it. This is not a game that's going to be a campaign or take over your life. It's a focused thing. I love those. If any of that sounded interesting, then I recommend checking it out. You got 4 days left to back it.
All right, up next, Our Innermost Thoughts, a mostly solo zine of small RPGs. This has 4 days left, ending on Tuesday, July 14th. 5 experiences about communicating with yourself, nature, and others. This is created by Travis D. Hill, who we had called out before for The Wait, which was the game very emotionally intense about gathering with a group of people and waiting for a loved one to pass on. So Travis has done some amazing things with creating these really interesting, introspective, thoughtful games. This is something that I have backed. I talked about Travis with doing a thing, talk with Travis about doing a thing for this game. So spoiler alert, I might be involved in
you're
this in some
biased
way.
is what I'm hearing.
I'm biased. Yeah, absolutely biased. But what I really like about this is it's very in the moment, because a lot of these being solo games, especially one about lost nature, it's a solitaire game about finding and reuniting lost objects in the world with their homes. So this is something that you can go out and play. The delivery window is very soon. So these are zines, very easy to print. So you'll have this in your hands very quickly, and you'll be able to just go out and play these solo journaling style games without a lot of preparation, without having to get a group together. So I think it's very important for this moment that we're in right now. Again, that has 4 days left, ending Tuesday, July 14th.
I mean, I think that's another really good example of what we love at a Kickstarter are those really small, focused zine games.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Christian, what do you got for us?
All right. Well, next up, we've got, with just 6 days left, closing Thursday, July 16th, All Rise, the ridiculous game of courtroom debate. It is a party game in which one person plays the judge, 2 people play attorneys, and everybody else plays either plays the jury or surprise witnesses as they pop up. Generally, you know, it's one of those very kind of improv-y storytelling type games. God knows why I latched onto it.
I think you're just like arguing.
Yeah.
I do not.
wait, I see what you did there. I get it.
All right. You guys are getting faster as the more time goes on. I love that about you. So this game just looks like fun. It looks like a fun party game. If I go to parties, I generally prefer that there is a game of some kind, because otherwise I have to be a people in front of other people, and I don't like doing that. So party games are always a nice way to break the ice, especially with a bunch of strangers. Plus, I'm generally pretty good at them, so it makes me look cool.
Ooh,
Nice.
I gotta love those.
That's
Cool
not
looking.
even remotely true, but I wish it
Oh.
did. So yeah, it's 5 rounds of going over a case, implementing that you pull a card, and everybody takes their parts, and you argue the case and see who wins.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds like fun to me. I'm gonna take a closer look at it.
Nice.
Mhm.
Up next, we have Role Player Adventures with 7 days left, ending Friday, July 17th. You probably heard about Role Player before. It's a game that's been out for a few years now. It really caught my attention, and I was telling a lot of people about it when it first came out, because the cool concept of the whole game is rolling your character. So for original Role Player, so you roll the dice, you're getting different items and things. It's a very mechanical game, all built around character creation. The original game fell a little flat to me because there wasn't more to it, and because it was so mechanical. So I'm actually really excited about Role Player Adventures, because it looks like it leans a little more into the storytelling, and you still have the very mechanical dice rolling aspect to it. But a little bit
to
more
be clear, though, like
RPG.
the original Role Player was a straight up board game.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, it was a straight up board game built around the idea of character creation. So then this one, takes it into actually telling a story.
Yeah, so there's storytelling aspects, but it's RPG adjacent, I would say, because you're fighting creatures, for example, but you're rolling dice and doing the same number matching mechanic as you did in original Role Player. So it's a very interesting blend, and there's adventures and scenarios and stuff. So if you like all those things, you should check it out. 7 days left, ending Friday, July 17th. All right, next up, French Toast, a 5-minute party game for all ages. 7 days left, ending Friday, July 17th. This is by Bluebeard Entertainment. I was actually able to hang out with Peter back at BGGCon when he was talking about getting ready to launch this Kickstarter. So here we go. We're going to play French Toast. Y'all ready?
Oh, boy.
I'm going to surprise you on stream. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to think of an item.
Is it French Toast?
It's not French Toast, because that would kind of ruin the game. Okay, I got my item. Now, Derek, you guess what I'm thinking.
Headphones.
Headphones. All right. headphones. So the way this game works is if that word you say is closer to my word than French toast, then I will repeat back to you your word. So now we know that the item I'm thinking of is closer in my interpretation to headphones than French toast is. So Christian, you're up next. What am I thinking?
Bread.
Bread, headphones. Bonsai.
Desktop?
Like a desktop computer?
Yes.
Desktop computer. Derek, you're up.
Webcam.
Desktop computer. Christian.
Keyboard.
Desktop computer. Bonsai.
Monitor.
Desktop computer.
Dang it.
Laptop.
Desktop computer.
Desk.
Desktop computer. And again, like I could be thinking of any item. So like once you start to play this, you start to go further out. Like it's not necessarily anywhere close. It's just closer to desktop computer than French toast. Bonsai, you're up, I think.
So wait, hold on. That adds more factors to it.
Yeah.
Cat.
Desktop computer. We don't have to go all the way. We're just going to go a few more questions and then move on. Derek. Also, I'm looking at the chat. I'm not seeing anything that's closer to it, but I'll shout that out if I do.
TV.
What's that?
TV.
Desktop computer. Christian.
Tablet.
Desktop computer. Bonsai.
Zoom call.
Zoom call. Desktop computer. Derek.
Server.
Server.
Oh.
Christian.
Cord.
Server. Bonsai.
Matrix.
Matrix. Derek.
Cloud computing.
What's that?
Cloud
computing. Cloud computing. Christian.
A file.
Cloud computing. Bonsai.
Skynet.
Skynet. Derek.
The World Wide Web.
Skynet. Christian.
Somebody on chat already took what I was going to say modem, but
no, Skynet. Yeah, no. Bonsai, you're up.
Anonymous.
hopefully
Skynet. We'll go through one more round, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Derek.
Twitch.
Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Skynet. Christian.
Okay.
Go broad.
phone.
Phone. Skynet. Bonsai.
AI.
Ooh. I think I'm going to stick with Skynet. All right. I don't want to take up too much more time, so I'm going to say what I was thinking was spaceship. And so how my progress was going through this was server, it's like a bigger, more thing. And then Skynet, spaceship is up in the sky and it's technical, like science thing. So that's basically the game. And French Toast as a product is really cool because it offers you a little bit more mechanics to go with it. So game is fun. You can totally play it at any time with your friends. I love this game. And there's
sounds like a good game for like a road trip to.
Yeah.
Sounds like a more fun version of 20 Questions, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this once you play it a few times, you kind of get a sense of it. And sometimes it goes around for a while, and sometimes you just get it right off the bat. Whenever you get the clue, you just feel so smart because you make that connection and you say, you're like, oh, it can't possibly be glasses. And like, oh no, it's glasses. And you're like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I love this game.
I felt smart when you. Yeah, I felt smart when you accepted my answers as closer, and then I was like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah. Once you played it through one time, you kind of get a sense of, okay, I got to push the boundaries of these things a little bit more. Like the first time you play it, you kind of fixate a little bit on the thing and kind of go close to it. Mm-hmm. But the key to it is kind of like spinning your mind. 7 days left. check it out. French toast.
French toast. All right, with 8 days left, Saturday, July 18th, Eli and Something Shiny, a role or a replayable story-driven game. Basically, it's an easy, simple to learn, unique, or simple to learn game where it's 1 to 3 players. You're basically overcoming fear and trying to find ways to the shinies by choose your path, choose your own adventure, but choose your path. Gaming mechanics. I would say that this is the cutest Kickstarter of the week. Just putting it down there.
That's pretty adorable.
So adorable, but
It's
yeah,
so
it has
cute. Yes.
over
Oh, gosh.
300 pieces and distinctive pieces and super cute artwork. And it includes 5 chapter stories. There is some rolling mechanics that you have to do as well, and some of the interesting mechanics that you can do is that your choices, depending on the cards that you take, have a way to either affect your future story playing. So that's how the replayability comes down, is that like sometimes some of the paths you choose will either leave it in the past or make it arise again. And so you put it back in the deck for it to, the story point to come again with a different twist. So very cute. And it's a game that you can easily play with a younger audience. And there are rules for those who want to have more of a challenge as well.
Nice.
So that's 8 days left.
So the next project, I think, may not surprise anybody because it's very similar to what I was talking about with the Kickstarter earlier. But coincidentally, Paranoia, I think one of the key inspirations for that Tartarus Gate thing, is also on Kickstarter right now. So 8 days left, ending Saturday, July 18th, is Project Infinite Hole, basically an R&D source box for Paranoia. So if you're not familiar with Paranoia, it's one of the classic comedy RPGs where the idea is like it's a send up of science, fear of communism, bonsai sneezing, a lot of these things kind of rolled together. But like the classic scenario is the computer, who is your friend, awakens your clone, sends you on a mission that you literally have no hope of achieving, and your mere awareness of the mission is a violation of security protocol and security clearance that you have, thus making you a traitor, requiring the computer to then kill you, unless it is given a mission to another player to do that. Like it is a ridiculous game in which you are expected to die horribly, and then your clone gets booted up and told, hey, that person, your previous version was a traitor, so don't do that. So this is an expansion, like a big box, a lot of material in it. A lot of the fun of Paranoia is
I love
being
it.
given these gadgets that you're not really supposed to have, that might do bad things to you, stuff like that. So there's like a bunch of those kind of toys. There's adventures in here. There's a lot of stuff to run Paranoia, I think, is the key. And they also have the option to add bundles to, get a bunch of the previous stuff that's been released for the current edition of Paranoia, which I find very amusingly is labeled Acute Paranoia. Anyway, if you want more like sci-fi paranoia humor in your RPGs, then go play Paranoia. And here's a way to get into it. So you got 8 days left on that.
8 days. With 9 days left, Saturday, July 19th, Age of Atlantis. It is a competitive engine building civilization game where you try to be the most prominent house in Atlantis. Basically, you have to it's a multi-layer. So as a person, like as a house, you have to appease Poseidon, the god, because if you don't appease Poseidon, he's just going to flood your part of the town. Grow and build more technologies where you can have these like huge mythic creatures, giant mechanical mythic creatures that resemble actual actual Greek mythology creatures.
Like Pegasus
and,
or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pegasus and such. And while you're also trying to build your house within that city and fight off all the jealous other nations that obviously don't realize how great us Atlanteans are.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of like, you stab each other in the back, you make deals so you can have the best family. And so basically at the end of the game, whoever as it goes through the ages, after the third age ends, the game is over, and the one person who has the most political power at that point before Atlantis sinks into the sea wins the game.
If I'm interpreting these gifts correctly, it looks like there's an actual flying Pegasus that you place a dice upon as it flies around the board. And I mean, that's enough for me to be sold.
Yeah, like there's a weird clockwork element to this. Like there's a lot of the classic kind of Empire city building, Greek stuff that we get with a lot of board games, but then like clockwork mythological monsters, which is kind of an interesting divergence.
Yeah.
It's like a steampunk Athens edition, or steampunk Greek.
Oh, also the Minotaur has a butt bonsai. You might be interested in that.
All the butts.
I mean, at this point, I have a feeling that any minis that Bonsai gets will end up with clay butts before too long.
It only has to be food-based butts, though. All food-based butts only.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right. Stuff. But yeah, that has 9 days left. Sunday, July 19th. And with that was all of our Kickstarters today. And the end of Tabletakes. But wait, stick around as we go on. There's going to be a info stream after this. Derek and Emma going to be in there talking about Tabletop Simulator, and also event registration overviews. So if you guys want to know, like Derek was saying earlier, there's still only 2 weeks left before Gen Con Digital. It's gonna be exciting.
And it's not even half of what Derek has to do.
No.
not even like a tenth of.
Well, did you see we're up to over 4,600 active events?
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's a lot. So hey, I guess it's just gonna be a takeover. Gen Con's gonna take over the internet. With all that, it's just good luck scheduling all of those. But yeah, speaking of scheduling, we have a full roster here at Gen Con TV. Mondays 6 p.m. board games with the Brothers Murph. Wednesday 1:30 p.m. This is all Pacific times, by the way. This game gets dicey. 4 p.m. Fireside with Peter Atkinson. Talk about the background, like basically the insider's look of how various different parts of the gaming industry has grown and developed. 5:30 p.m. we got Gen Con online info for Roll20. So if you guys wanted to know how to set up Roll20, how to make it work, especially because of those who are going to be doing games for Gen Con during that time, that's the time to tune in. So 5:30 p.m. As the weeks go on, we're going to be delivering more and more info on things you need to know to set up before this online event. Friday, of course, you got 1 p.m. with Tabletakes or Gen Con, 1 p.m. Gen Con News, which is giving you all the information that you need to know about this Gen Con Online coming up, how you can set things up, what you need to do, what papers you need to fill out, what things you need to have set up. 2 p.m. actually with us, Tabletakes, where we go ahead and spill all the gaming tea around. 3:30, Gen Con Online information, convention overview. So that is all you have to look up for next week's schedule. Remember, whether you're watching here on Twitch or watching here on YouTube, follow, subscribe. There's little simple, easy click. Follows are free. Turn on those notifications. If you miss a show, like I said, you can follow us on YouTube, and you would get the videos a day later. And thank you guys for being here, Derek, Emma, Christian, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stick around, chat, because they're going to talk to you about Tabletop Sims. Bye.